In a relatively stunning turn of events, Deshaun Watson waived his no-trade clause for the Browns. Pearce, Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson. How's that for a fantasy trio?
That's a pretty good fantasy trio. That's a pretty good offense. I mean, they've upgraded at quarterback. They've upgraded at wide receiver. This offense wasn't terrible last season when it was healthy. The line was fine. So now you've got all these upgrades. Amari Cooper was fine last season. I know his numbers were down a little bit, but that was just the product of the offense having plenty of weapons and then game scripts. Cooper will be fine. Hopefully Watson won't skip a beat, and they're going to be a pretty potent offense. I would like to see them add another wide receiver, maybe Cole Beasley or whoever they can get, because the AFC North offenses look pretty strong, and they could be in shootouts every single week. So they're going to need a little bit more firepower. Also, as you add more receivers, it's going to enable Chubb to have more running lanes. Less teams are going to be able to stack the box. So it looks really good for the Browns right now. Now, they may have kind of mortgaged their future a little bit, but they're in a position to win in 2022.
Geoff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, from a real-life perspective, Browns still have a lot of young players on defense and things. I don't think the trade picks or trading the draft picks are necessarily going to hurt them that much. It's great. From a fantasy perspective, I would really watch what the Browns do the rest of the way. And I think Pearce nailed it, saying they need to add someone like a Cole Beasley. You look at what the Browns ran last year on offense. They ran a lot of 13 personnel. They had 3 tight ends on the field a ton of times. That's not really good for Deshaun Watson's fantasy prospects. This is a player who didn't do a ton of play action in Houston. He's used to 11 personnel, so 3-4 wide receiver on the field. Cleveland just does not do that, or they didn't do that last year. So if you're expecting Deshaun Watson to just come in, fling the ball 40 times again, put up monster yardage, it may not happen right off the bat. I'm not saying he's not going to be successful. They can tailor the offense to him. RPOs are going to be a thing. They do have David Njoku there, who I think is a very interesting prospect right now. He's managed to stay on the roster despite demanding a trade, but he might be their best receiver outside of Amari Cooper right now. Cooper's a great deep ball catcher as well. He had great deep ball stats last year. He's had them his whole career. So if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. But that Cleveland roster, a little thin at wide receiver. And like I said, Deshaun Watson's history, he's more used to these 3 wide receiver personnels. Watch what Cleveland does. If they do sign some more wide receivers, it's going to be even better news for Deshaun Watson.
Okay, how about the compensation for the Texans? 3 first-round picks. So, Geoff, given that, I mean, how quickly can the Texans rebuild, and is that a fair price for the Browns?
I mean, I don't know if you could ever get a fair price for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson. Some people will say, well, it's way too much. Some people will say you can't ever pay enough for a quarterback. So I think it's absolutely fine. 3 first-round picks. I don't know really what else you could get this day and age. I think that's the max. And as far as them rebuilding, yes, Texans, it's the NFL. You can rebuild in a year. Look at what the Cincinnati Bengals did. Excuse me. This team wasn't even favored to finish above 4th in their division, and they went to the Super Bowl. All it takes is a couple good draft picks, a stable coach, and all of a sudden you're on your way. Let's not forget they're in the AFC South. They've got a new head coach in Lovie Smith, who's got plenty of winning records under his belt. This is a guy who took Rex Grossman to the Super Bowl, Jesse. Yes, they can turn it around very quickly. They just got to grab a few pieces on defense, get some run blockers in there. Davis Mills may have been one of the best rookie quarterbacks last year, so he's not terrible. It probably won't happen next year for the Texans, but they're probably going to be competitive a lot sooner than people think.
Pearce, you mentioned that you felt like the Browns might have been mortgaging their future with all those picks.
Yeah, it's a great steal here for the Texans, but I disagree that they're a few pieces away. They're a lot of pieces away. This is not the coaching staff that they initially wanted to hire. So they need a new coaching staff. They need an offensive line. They need a quarterback. They need receivers. They need running backs. They need defensive improvement. They've got to fix everywhere. The difference between the Bengals turning it around, they had a quarterback. They already had pretty good wide receivers and added a wide receiver. They were smart and picked up some pretty decent guys in free agency through defense, but they already had a lot of the pieces in place transitioning from the 2020 season to the 2021 season. The Texans maybe next season, 2023 I'm talking about, might be competitive, but they've got too many holes. I wouldn't blame them for taking the first-round picks and then trading them for middle-round picks just to start building the depth. That's how lacking this team is.
Where did the Bengals get Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? The draft. Just okay.
Oh, Noted, Geoff. All right, down in Tennessee, the Titans release Julio Jones, trade for Robert Woods. Pearce, the Titans offense struggled to stay healthy last year, so is Woods like a crucial piece to make it work if Henry and Brown miss any games, or is Woods for Jones basically like an even swap here?
Woods struggled to stay healthy himself. Is this Josh Reynolds 2.0? He went from the Rams to the Titans and then never even saw the field. Woods is better than Reynolds, but Julio Jones wasn't complete garbage when he rolled into Tennessee. People had really high expectations for him. And I think people still have expectations for Julio Jones moving forward. I think it's this offense, and I'm never going to miss an opportunity to clown on the Titans offense, but it's not very good. And I don't think Woods is going to help all that much. Derrick Henry is 1 year older. You got another injury to add onto the list. The offensive line was erratic last season. It wasn't as reliable as it has been in previous seasons. Tannehill was classic Tannehill. It's not going to change. The team wins in spite of him, not because of him. You can add Woods. You can add a top-tier wide receiver. I mean, Corey Davis was on this team, and he did nothing for them. A.J. Brown's great. He is awesome. But that's about the only positive I can say about the Titans offense.
All right, Geoff, how do we feel about this?
Oh, it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I do think at this point in their careers, let's assume Robert Woods is going to come back healthy from this ACL, first of all, which is a big if. At this point in their careers, Robert Woods probably gives you a little bit more stability than Julio Jones, who just, when he had it, he still had it, but he rarely had it because he's just so banged up at this point. The soft tissue injuries are just demolishing his career late here. So I think Robert Woods is kind of like a more stable upgrade for them. I like the signing, but Pearce is right. I mean, like this is a run-first offense. It's an offense under Mike Vrabel, who is just going to run the ball if Derrick Henry is on the field. And I'm not really sure it matters that much who the wide receiver 2 is. A.J. Brown is really the only wide receiver of note here because he can absolutely dominate top-end cornerbacks. And we saw him do that. He basically won the game versus San Francisco for them late in the year. I mean, that's just the type of player he is. But if he's out, is Robert Woods going to come in and dominate the same way? No. He's a good secondary option, but secondary options in this Tennessee Titans offense with Ryan Tannehill and Mike Vrabel, when Derrick Henry is healthy, they just haven't mattered that much. So I like the signing. I think it's an improvement over Julio Jones. I'm just not sure how much it's going to matter to the success of this team, which is so run-based. So.
Okay, DJ Moore re-ups with Carolina. Geoff, is this the year he's going to become the wide receiver that Reed Fowler has been telling us he would be for 2 years, or does he need a quarterback? I
mean, with DJ Moore, it's either you get a long touchdown or it's just nothing. I mean, the Panthers, he's not really a good red zone target. He's a nice wide receiver who gets good yards after the catch. He's a good deep ball catcher as well. But he works best in an offense where you've got a slot guy underneath, gobbling up some catches, and you're opening up space for shots with DJ Moore downfield. Carolina is just, I mean, you're going to have Cam Newton or Sam Darnold, it looks like, throwing him the ball. So this is not the year that DJ Moore turns into this all-world wide receiver. I think DJ Moore, as a comparable, is probably, an Amari Cooper-ish type player right now, and he's just running in a poor offense, unfortunately. He's got 4 touchdowns in each of his last 3 seasons. I just don't really see that changing much. You got him on a best ball roster, you can get excited when he gets those big days. But if you're targeting him a daily fantasy every day or even on a season long, you're going to have more frustrating days again than big celebration days. Sorry, Fowler.
All right, Pearce, what do we think?
DJ's a good receiver. He is the top tier receiver that Reed talks about, but the offense that he is surrounded by has been miserable the last several seasons. It's not necessarily the quarterback play, although Bridgewater and Darnold aren't helping out. It's the offensive line. We've been talking about this on here every day for 4 years. Carolina's offensive line is terrible. It got Ron Rivera fired. It's going to get Matt Rule fired. If they don't block, then the quarterbacks end up making poor passes, and it just doesn't help DJ out. Imagine what Christian McCaffrey could be doing if he actually had an offensive line. When we look at Carolina's offensive line, and the only thing that we can say is, hey, one of those guys gets paid in Bitcoin. That's usually a bad sign. That's a red flag that, hey, is that the only positive we can say about the Panthers line is Bitcoin? They got to fix that. If they do, then yeah, DJ can have a big season.